does look, all of them look pretty cut and dry.
Let's call this meeting to order. It's 4 p.m. on Thursday, November 21st. Amy, could you please call the roll?
Margaret Forbes.
Things are here.
Yeah, if you'll acknowledge.
Yes.
David Schaffner.
Here.
Larry King.
I think, yeah.
Marianne Bentley. Rhonda Ward. John Sloan. Jacqueline Pierre. And Miss Sally Ann Swearingen.
Here, okay. We're gonna say the pledge.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, we're going to pull the minutes from the consent agenda because there's quite a few edits. Have the members had a chance to look over the minutes? And
Yeah, I make a motion, we approve the minutes, amended minutes.
I'll second the motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes approved as amended. We'll begin the public, first I have to read this, okay. Regarding the items under consideration for this meeting's agenda, the Zoning Board of Adjustment will hear requests for variances to the city's code ordinances, more particularly Chapter 118 zoning. As described in Chapter 118, the Zoning Board of Adjustment has the power to decide appeals of city planner decisions as well as grant variances to this chapter pursuant to powers conferred by state law and city ordinances upon certain findings that, 1, such variance is in harmony with the intent and purpose of the comprehensive plan and this chapter. 2, such variance will not substantially or permanently injure the appropriate use of adjacent property in the same district. 3, such variance will not adversely affect the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. 4, such variance will not authorize the operation of a use other than those uses specifically authorized for the district in which the property for which the variance is sought is located. 5, the plight of the owner of the property for which the variance is sought is due to unique circumstances existing on the property, including but not limited to the area, shape, or slope, and that the unique circumstances were not created by the owner of the property and are not merely financial, and are not due to or the result of general conditions in the district in which the property is located. And 6, the variance is not a self-created hardship. In consideration of granting variance requests, the board may permit in any district such modification of the requirements of the district regulation as the board may deem necessary to secure an appropriate development of a lot where adjoining such lot on 2 or more sides there are lots occupied by buildings which do not conform to this chapter. The concurring vote of at least 4 members of the board shall be necessary to authorize a variance. For items scheduled for a public hearing, the board will hear first from staff and then the applicant, and the public will have an opportunity to comment on the agenda items. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, members of the board shall not discuss, deliberate, or make any decisions on topics not posted on the agenda item. Speakers should state their name and full address for the record and address all remarks to the board. The board asks that public remarks be limited to no more than 3 minutes. So the first item on the agenda, item A, is consider a request for variance to the zoning ordinance, section 118-466, off-street parking requirements for a reduction in the minimum off-street parking requirements in a B2 general business district for Lot 7T, City Block 69, generally located on the south side of Northeast Stallings Drive, approximately 200 feet east of Klein Drive. This request has been submitted by Jake Crawford with J.B. Crawford Construction on behalf of the owner, Carl Davis, M.D. Case file ZBA-2024-06. Can we hear from staff on this item?
Thank you, Chair. Board members, can you hear me? Is this?
Well, I mean, I can hear you, but I
can-
don't think
okay.
they can hear you.
Testing. Hello? Yeah, I think it's on now. Juan Paulette, interim city planner. So just want to mention that this item, as well as the next item, are dealing with the same property, just two different variances.
Okay,
So this undeveloped lot is just over half an acre and is located southeast of the medical center on Northwest Stallings Drive. The property, along with the adjacent properties, has a 120-foot wide Encore utility easement that runs along the front of the properties parallel to Stallings Drive. The property is relatively flat with few trees towards the back of the property. The property is Zone B2 General Business, along with the adjacent properties fronting the loop. There's also R1 Single Family to the south. Encore's easement policy states that only overflow parking is allowed within the easement. No required parking will be allowed. Because 40% of the property is undevelopable due to the utility easement, the applicant is requesting a 40% reduction in the required parking. This would reduce the required parking from 17 spaces to 10. This is the proposed site plan. The area highlighted in yellow is a section of the property that is undevelopable due to the Encore easement. The applicant is proposing to locate 10 required parking spaces in the rear of the building outside of the easement. The remaining 7 spaces in the front of the building will serve as overflow parking spaces. The adjacent properties are similar in use and have similar building setbacks and parking locations to the proposed medical office. This is a picture of the subject property, looking at it from Stallings Drive. And some office space to the east of the subject property. And you can see that their parking is also located within the easement. Dental office to the west. And here you can see the Encore transmission lines running along the front of the properties. And this slide shows the types of uses within the 200-foot notification area. Staff mailed out 30 public meeting notices to those property owners and have not received any responses in favor or in opposition of the request. Because of the existing site constraints with the Encore utility easement, staff finds that this request meets the conditions for approval. And this concludes staff's presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions from the board.
I have a question. I'm sorry. The architect that I am.
Okay.
I was wondering why, because when I went out there and looked, why the driveway that goes for the remainder of the parking, if you'll go back to the site plan, why they couldn't put in some parallel parking on that drive so that way they would get at least 4 or 5 more parking spaces.
And that could be possible. That might be a question better answered by the applicant or the representative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I will ask that question then. Okay, I know there's a tree there, but, and I know it slopes quite a bit there, but I didn't know fill dirt or whatever, because I know the slope of the property might go on water drainage onto another person's property. Sorry, I have to ask all those questions.
No, don't be sorry. I have a question. I'm looking at the remaining parking in the rear, and I only see 9 spaces. Is that,
I think they said they would be able to accommodate 10. So this is just a preliminary site plan.
okay,
When the actual site plan comes in for development, it'll have the appropriate spaces in the back.
So the appropriate number that they are supposed to have is what?
17.
Okay, that's what I thought.
so the future overflow parking that's depicted on this figure would carry over into the patient parking area, so that would be, what does that look like? Assuming that the patient parking area that's shown on here within the Encore easement becomes future overflow, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 11 spaces. What does that look like? Is that like on the grass, or is that gravel, or?
Those will all be paved.
Would you like me to answer some of these? Some of these are questions for us.
Yes, why don't you do that?
Travis Davis for,
I'm sorry?
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry, but if you could just hold on 1 second, we need to open the public hearing before we can hear from you, and make sure that Juan is done. Yes. All right, so I'm going to open the public hearing. And
Anybody opposed?
we would like to hear from the applicant first. And please state your name and address for the record. Yes, or the applicant's representative.
Travis Davis with 215 Consulting. We serve as the civil engineer for this site plan.
Yes.
You want to start with your
Yeah.
question first?
Yeah,
Just kind of
please.
go through the list. So the first one, you were talking about the parallel parks along the drive.
Right.
It's physically possible. We try to stay a 1-to-1 slope away from the edge of, there's about an 8-foot retaining wall along that edge. So in preparation for, safety protocol for a catastrophic failure, we want to be further than a 1-to-1 slope away from that edge. So we would prefer not to put parking that close to that retaining wall, just so that if 5, 10 years from now, something crazy happened, we don't have any infrastructure that's right up against that wall. The other question on the future parking that you were talking about, that was basically for the owner to see. So all the other spaces would be the 17 that are required. Those extra spaces off to the north, that was just to show the owner that, hey, you still have a little bit of extra space. You could physically pave more if 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now your practice is growing, you've added another provider, you need more patient parking, overflow parking, we could pave additional spaces. They don't intend to put the ones that are labeled future, they don't intend to put those in today, but we just wanted to show the owner that, hey, you do have a little additional space in the future if your business grows.
So the Encore easement allows paving, but they don't
Yes,
allow
they
you to
allow-
use it as a permanent.
They allow overflow parking. So basically what they want to ensure is that all of our required parking is outside of their easement. And I think their primary intention for that is if they have to come in and do maintenance on their overhead line, they don't want to be at risk of shutting the practice down. So the risk in this scenario, in my opinion, is on the business owner, and the business owner's of the opinion that the spaces that we can put in the back is adequate for him to be able to operate his business, even if Encore comes in there with bucket trucks and they're working on the easement.
So the variance is for 10 parking spaces.
Right, but we intend to install 18. We intend to install the full amount, we just need Encore to understand that the ones in the front are technically overflow. They're not ordinance required.
Okay, and it's possible that sometime in the future they might be disturbed and then have to be replaced if Encore needed to get in there and do something within the easement.
What do you mean by disturbed
Yeah.
and replaced?
Well, if they had to do something to repair a line, they might have to dig up one of the parking spaces.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the owner's
possible.
responsibility.
Well,
Right.
that would be Encore's. If they come in and damage the owner's property for some sort of construction effort, Encore would replace it at that point.
okay. I
But
think I
you're gonna
understand.
be able to get the 10 parking places even though you're showing
What
9.
we'll do is we'll slide, see the 2 parking spaces nearest the building at the front, they're split by that Encore easement. We would probably just slide the building a little closer to the easement line so that we have space to put a couple more
Gotcha.
spaces in the back.
Okay,
And we think there's plenty of room for that, so.
and you've got your ADA ratio and all that, I
Yeah,
know.
we're required to have 1 ADA space. We're showing 2 on the site plan, but we'll provide at least the 1 that's required.
Okay. All right,
Anything else you'd like to add?
I mean, I think Juan did a great job. Do y'all have anything else? I know we're gonna talk, we've got an additional variance that'll follow this, but as far as the parking is concerned, I think Juan
Okay.
covered most everything.
Okay, please state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Jake Crawford,
Hi.
JB Crawford Construction, 2802 Durst Street. Thank you, Board, for having us. Basically, what this is Encore, the situation, the reason we felt like it was justifiable to ask for the variance is because Dr. Davis said that he usually has about 3 clients at one time because they're coming in, and their average stay is 45 minutes to an hour and a half. And so it's not necessarily parking that they're going to be there all day. And Encore's wording, and it's in their easement, it's just a word.
Yeah,
And so the variance would allow us to, we would still have the parking spots, but it would be labeled as overflow. And technically, it could be overflow because depending on the number of patients, you may have 2, 3, 4, 5 cars there. But all the employee parking, which would be the parking that Encore would be concerned about, would be in the back because they would be there basically all day. So it's really, we're just asking for a variance that we could reword this and label those as overflow, just so we could not have to go through any legal measures with Encore. It's just
Understood.
gonna make it more
right.
buildable.
How many do they normally have employees all day?
They have 7.
Okay,
7. So, technically, we've got 3 extra parking
parking
spots.
spots, right,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak in support of the appeal besides Mr. Crawford? Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak in opposition to the variance? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing on this item. Does anybody have any questions for staff or the applicant? Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the variances that they're wanting to accomplish of the parking.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The vote shows 4 to nothing, so it should pass. It's
Right.
unanimous. It requires 4 votes to pass. So,
All right.
all right, moving on to the next agenda item B. Same property, public hearing. Consider a request for a variance to the zoning ordinance section 118-430D, street landscaping for a reduction in the minimum requirement for street landscaping in a B2 general business district for Lot 7T, City Block 69, generally located on the south side of Northeast Stallings Drive, approximately 250 feet west of Klein Drive. This request has been submitted by Jake Crawford with JB Construction on behalf of the owner, Carl Davis, MD. Case file ZBA 2024-07. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Board members, Juan Paulette, Interim City Planner. So again, this is the same property with the 120-foot Encore easement. Property is zone B2. And this Encore's easement policy states that no trees will be permitted in the easement, and only Encore approved landscaping plans with ornamental landscaping is allowed. And I believe it can't be more than 6 feet high. So the ordinance states that for every 100 feet of commercial street frontage, either 2 tall or 3 short mature height trees need to be planted between the front property line and a line measured 35 feet back. The proposed variance is to waive the landscaping requirement. ZBA could choose to consider an alternate location for the landscaping, as well as alternate landscaping options. Any landscaping within the Encore easement would require Encore approval. In this slide, you can see the Encore easement highlighted in yellow overlaps the area designated for the street landscaping represented by the green rectangle. And pictures of the subject property, the transmission lines. And this slide shows the types of uses within a 200-foot notification. Again, we sent out 30 notices and received no responses in favor or in opposition. Because of the existing site constraints with the Encore utility easement encompassing all of the street landscaping area, staff finds the request meets the conditions for approval. And again, this concludes staff's presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions from the board.
I know that we can request other, like, I guess the alternate, yes,
Can you,
needs.
yes, can you go to the picture of the property? I believe it's a dentist office to the west.
This one?
That looks pretty bleak without any landscaping. Is that property finished in development, or are they
Yes, no, all those properties were built in the 80s and 90s.
before there was a landscaping requirement,
Before the
commercial?
landscaping requirement. And also, it's probably, Encore's utility easement requirements were probably a little more lax back then, which, as you see, that all their parking is under the easement.
Easement.
So I think back then they allowed those parking spots to be built in the easement.
Right, I understood that, but with respect to the landscaping, this building doesn't appear to have any landscaping, and I was just wondering.
Yeah, that
That's
was
before the landscaping ordinance.
Okay,
I think we adopted the landscaping ordinance in 2018.
But he does intend to have some landscaping in front of the new building, is that correct?
I'm not sure if they they wouldn't be able to plant it within the easement. It would have to be pretty much right up against the building, if you look at
Or on the
this.
sides,
Yeah.
where I proposed the parking.
Right, along
Well,
along the eastern property line.
Right, which would help with drainage and other things. So,
well, there is room on the the northeast corner, apparently, I don't know. Perhaps the applicant, when he speaks, could let us know what the intentions are, and then we can discuss that.
Yes.
Any more questions for Juan?
no.
Okay, would the applicant like to, is the applicant present? Would the applicant like to?
Open the public hearing.
I'm going to open the public hearing portion of this agenda item. Would the applicant like to speak?
Hey, Crawford Construction, 2802 Durst Street. Yes, so we don't have a landscaping plan, but we do have an allowance of $30,000 included in his bid. So I do know that he's expecting to do landscaping with trees where we can put them. We just can't put them out there under the easement. So that
Right.
there's definitely going to be, it's not going to look like the dentist office. Nothing against Nacogdoches Dental. It's just, it's going to be very, very pretty, very pleasing to the eye. But we don't have a drawing yet, and probably won't, but we're going to put that landscaping in all areas that it's possible to have.
So you'll use that 30,000.
We will use it.
Okay.
We will put it to good use, yes.
Okay.
Any questions?
No?
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public that would like to speak in support of the variance? Any that would like to speak in opposition to the variance? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this and open it to a possible motion.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve with, hopefully landscaping to be utilized on the property.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any discussion amongst the board? I'm sorry, would you like to add something?
Board, this is Mike New, Executive Director of Development and Infrastructure. If you can clarify,
Okay.
based on the variance request, it was a variance to not meet the requirements of our
Yes.
landscaping. So if you have maybe a relocation, meet the
Okay.
landscaping requirements
can be
in
a
a
lot
different
more
location. Yeah,
discriminative.
Yeah, I
let's
was
provide some
about to,
detail to that. That'd be helpful.
Okay.
I was about to go there,
Right. I can
but
make
I
it-
was waiting to try and
I'll
do
make
it
an
at the right moment.
amendment that approve the variance as stated, but we would like to see landscaping utilized throughout the property besides the Concord easement area on the side, front, back, or whatever, so that we are being a little bit more sustainable with the growth.
I have a problem with the way that the variance is worded because it says a reduction in the minimum requirements for street landscaping. And it doesn't say exactly how much of a reduction that is. Is it just to address the street trees and everything else would be left in place? Or could you answer that for us?
So if you notice on your screen, the green rectangle is
Yes.
where the street landscaping is allowed.
Yes.
So it has to be behind the front property line and 35 feet back in that area only. So anything outside of that would have to be approved.
Approved.
So if you see the Encore easement is not going to allow for any street landscaping
Right, trees,
with trees.
which I know that we have trees, so it has to be in the rest of the property.
So
it would
let me
have
ask,
to be
go ahead.
outside of that highlighted area in the front.
Right. That's why I said if the landscaping could be outside of the Encore easement.
Yes, like on the east side of the property, along the building or along the property line, or maybe like right up front, in front of the building.
Right.
So is street landscaping separate than building, are there two separate categories of landscaping?
Yes, there's a street landscaping, which is required,
By
with the
the
green
city.
in that area in front. And then the only other landscaping we have for commercial would be if there's residential adjacency,
Right.
then you would have to plant or put trees along that property line.
So by approving this variance, we're essentially saying that absolutely no landscaping would be required if
Or
we
you could
approved it as
put-
written.
You could just say that instead of putting it along the street where it's required, you can have an alternate location for that street landscaping.
Right. And that's basically what we're saying.
Right.
Alternate location.
Alternate
You can
location.
still have shrubs and stuff. It can't be over 6 foot.
Well,
within
it can't
the
be in that
easement.
green
I
box.
mean, within the green box.
Like you
Right.
could put trees on the eastern property line,
Mm-hmm.
and they should be fine there because there's nothing gonna
Right.
obstruct it. But they can also put shrubs along the building or whatever they want to do,
Right.
ornamental.
Right. And you're putting grass, so it's not like all concrete, so.
Can you restate the motion? Yeah, you can't.
Board, if, I'm going to try to, in my head, maybe restate in a way
Okay.
that works for the board. The motion would be to the variance would be to maintain street landscaping requirements, but provide for alternate locations.
Correct.
Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yes. Okay, so
So
that's
we
the
have a
motion
motion.
before us.
And we would need a second for that motion
Okay.
to continue
okay.
discussion.
So that's the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And there's no, there's no opportunity, okay,
We need to
you're
vote.
good.
We need to all vote.
Right, well, we can discuss
Yes.
after a motion, so you've got that motion. Okay, if there's no discussion, then we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion as stated by Sally?
Aye.
Aye.
So the motion passes for nothing. All right, we'll move on to the next and last agenda item. Item C, a public hearing to consider a request for a variance to the zoning ordinance, section 118-427A, district development chart for a reduction in the minimum side yard setbacks requirements in an I-1 light industrial district for lots 2-2 and 2-5, CB 38, located at 114 East Craven Street. This request has been submitted by the owner, Rolando Rodriguez. Case file ZBA 2024-08. Can we hear the staff report?
Thank you, Chair, board members. Juan Paulette, interim city planner. So this property is approximately 0.2 acres and is undeveloped. The property has approximately 53 feet of frontage on East Craven Street. The property is cleared with the exception of a few trees in the back. This property is surrounded by light industrial zoning district and is developed with a mix of commercial uses to the north and west and residential uses to the east. This property is located within the FEMA floodplain. 20 feet of the back property is in the floodway. This area does not allow for development. The rest of the property is in the 100-year flood zone, which requires any construction to be 1 foot above the base flood elevation level. Floodway extends, This variance is being requested for a side building setbacks. The applicant is requesting a variance from the required 20-foot building setbacks in order to construct a 24 by 40-foot warehouse storage building. The proposed building would have a front setback of 30 feet and a rear setback of 38 feet. The specific variance being requested is for a reduction in the side building setbacks from 20 feet to 13 feet, requiring a 7-foot variance. And this is the preliminary site plan for the warehouse. And because of the lot's narrow width of 53 feet, it would make it difficult to comply with the 20-foot setbacks without rendering the lot unbuildable or limiting its potential use. And this is the view of the subject property from Craven Street. And these are the single-family homes to the east of it. There's approximately 4, I believe. And this is an empty lot to the west of the subject property. And the commercial property to the north across Craven. And this slide shows the types of uses within the 200-foot notification area. Staff mailed out 15 public notices to those property owners and have not received any responses in opposition or in favor. The 20-foot building setback significantly reduces the available building envelope and would make it difficult to accommodate any reasonable size structure. So staff finds that this request meets the conditions for approval. And this concludes staff's presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions from the board.
I'm confused why the second tract is included in this. What, the one that's in the floodway, why is it part of the package?
It's the property,
They own
the
it.
owner owns both of those lots, and so it was just included.
But you're not
it's-
requesting any action whatsoever on that
Not on
second
that
lot?
one, no.
It's
It's
just
just
depicted in the material?
Depicted in the aerial photo.
And it being in the floodplain, does he intend to place fill in there to achieve, I don't know what the elevation is there,
He's
but.
gonna be required to find out what the base flood elevation level is, and if that property is under that, he'll be required to lift, put fill in 1 foot above that elevation level.
Right.
And will that fill be mitigated somehow by reducing fill somewhere else? Or excavating somewhere else to maintain the same volume of the floodplain?
He'll probably have to get it from somewhere else. Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm asking about floodplain management, because when you place fill in the 100-year floodplain, you're essentially reducing the volume that a flood, that's available to a flood before it starts.
He will have to get a floodplain elevation permit, so it'll be reviewed by engineers.
City engineers?
The city engineer. So it will have to be, any dirt that will be placed there, fill dirt, all that will be reviewed by the engineer.
Any other questions for Juan? No?
It took me forever to
Thank
find the
you.
street.
Thank you.
Go look at
No,
it.
I walk down the street all the time.
Oh,
It's in my
really?
neighborhood.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing portion. Is the applicant present, and would the applicant like to speak? State your name and address, please.
Rolando Rodriguez, 1850 York Drive. Thank you for having me here, board. Basically, it's just want to have a warehouse there. I own the property around there, Rodzilla Developments, or Rodzilla Graphics.
Right.
Rodzilla Developments is the construction company that I own, which we will just be building a little storage right across the street from there. It's just all grown up, and the property came up for sale, and that was going to be a good location for me to do that. So, I mean, basically, I'm just gonna build it up to where it's above floodplain, and that'll be it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can ask him a question, right? Yes. Or,
The other is the public in favor and opposition to make comments, and then after it's closed, you could ask. After the public hearing is closed,
okay.
ask the applicant questions.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I have a question for you later. Don't leave. Don't leave. Okay. Are there any any additional members that would like to speak in support of the variance? Are there any members of the public present that would like to speak in opposition to the variance? All right. Now can I ask a question? Or close the public hearing. I'm going to close the public hearing and re-invite you to the podium.
Rolando Rodriguez,
Yes.
1850 York Drive.
Yeah, okay. So I saw the argument that the lot's too narrow to put a usable storage building and still meet the setback requirements on the side, but I didn't see an argument for why it has to be 24 feet wide, your building. Is this a prefab building or some?
No, 24 foot is what they're telling me, or what I'm able to build without an architectural stamp on it. So that's the reason I'm building 24 foot wide. That's the only reason I'm doing that. Other than that, it's just having to go 20 feet from this side and 20 feet from that side would only allow me to have like a 10-foot wide building in the middle. So when I looked at the size that I needed, 24 was all that I needed. I didn't want to build a building that was 30 or 40 feet to have less of a set or a setback from the side. Does that make any sense?
I think so. And what will be stored in here? Construction
Well,
supplies
basically,
or?
it's gonna have like an office with a little storage, and I'm just gonna
Okay,
stuff that I have left over from construction jobs.
Alright.
You know, I just need that, to allow me to keep my things organized. Right now, I'm stacking them in my Rozilla, graphics, and it kinda
yeah,
gets in the way of what I'm doing there, so that property came available and it was perfect. You know, so now I can just, move it over there and keep an eye on everything.
all right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks,
What are
y'all.
you building it out of? I mean, is it a metal building
No,
or?
no, no, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just go straight construction, where it's gonna be a wood, and then I'm gonna have a brick on the side to hopefully match my,
Building.
graphics building, the commercial bank that I have there. Just
Okay.
something along that line, real nice. It's not gonna be anything like a metal building that would be, but that's
Take
what I'm
away.
planning.
Make the neighborhood look nice.
Yeah, I'm trying, so.
I think your graphics building looks very nice.
Well, and if you notice, there's some land on the other side of the railroad tracks. I bought that and cleared all that out. You say you walk over there?
Yes,
I
all the
cleaned
time.
that out, and eventually I'm gonna do something over there, but I just got tired of all the trees and all the stuff going in there, so I bought it, cleaned it out.
Maybe you could talk the city into fixing the street right there.
I think I'll see what I can do. I'll
There's
see
a,
what I can do.
there's a pothole big enough to
Oh,
go
yeah.
swimming in.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Well, that's
I'll see
everywhere.
what I can do.
That's everywhere in Nacogdoches.
Well, this one's particularly bad. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so, we'll open the floor, let's see. Do we have any more questions, or would somebody like to make a motion for this item?
Go ahead, David.
I can make the motion to grant the waiver on the,
The variance?
with
The
the
variance.
variance.
Okay,
I second.
all right. Any discussion? John, any discussion?
It sounds good to me.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, variance passes 4-0. Congratulations. I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 4:42. Wait. Okay.